Good morning, everyone. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor here at Lincoln Square. And joining me as always on Tuesday morning is Edwin Eisendrath, who hosts It's the Democracy Stupid right here on Lincoln Square on Friday afternoons. Edwin is a Chicago alderman, the former CEO of the Chicago Sun-Times, and he also hosts a radio show on the weekend on Heartland Signal, which you can hear live in Chicago or online anywhere. Edwin, thank you so much for being with us as always.
Thanks, Susan.
Well, it was a very busy weekend. There are a lot of places we can start, but I think there is no doubt that ICE's violence is on the rise again. We have at least 21 people who have reportedly died in ICE custody this year. We've had 2 very graphic killings in the last week. And huge protests in Maine, protests in Memphis going on, where ICE has been a force for several months, actually. Edwin, what are your thoughts on what kind of violence we might be looking at further on in this summer?
Well, both of the people that ICE shot this week and killed were unarmed, and they weren't the people that ICE were going for. But to them, I guess everybody looks alike if they look Latino, right? So they stopped the wrong person and ended up killing both. In both cases, of course, have lied about what they were doing in their defense. I mean, one was supposedly weaponizing a car again. How many times have we heard that? And again, found not to be true. The other fled, wasn't somebody they were after, was afraid of them and left, wasn't armed, but they killed him anyway because it was a threat to the public, right? All of that is dishonest and cruel, and they should be prosecuted. What we know is that the administration got rid of Kristi Noem, got rid of Greg Bovino, said we're chasing, we don't really want to do this like this, then got Congress to give them billions of dollars to expand what they're doing without one bit of additional safeguards. And as soon as they got the money, they're back at it again. Right.
You know what? That is a point that AOC made yesterday. And I think that that's a clip worth playing.
And any reaction to the ICE killings in Maine and Texas?
I'm still taking a look at all of the details. But once again, this is not... I said this a couple of weeks ago, that I would not be surprised if when ICE funding started up again, that we would start to see more civilian deaths at the hands of ICE. And that's exactly what has happened. When you open the trenches with all of this money that Republicans have now funneled to ICE without any oversight or anything, you're going to see abuses of power. And that's exactly what's happening. You notice that we didn't see things like this happening with the same degree of regularity when we froze the ICE funds. Right. And now that they've been opened up again, we're seeing multiple incidents now. So,
right. Thank you, Congressman.
Yeah, she's absolutely right. Absolutely right. And it will continue. I think there's an absolute determination on the part of this administration to deport 1 million people in a year. That's 3,000 people a day. They are collecting, right? 2,000 a day now, or at least that was the report a week ago. Just, grabbing them off the street, sending them into these detention centers where we know the conditions are horrid on purpose because they're trying to get people to self-deport. They're being put on these ICE planes where they are shackled for 30 hours. And
they're being brought to countries that they're not even from and just dumped there.
Not only I wish they were dumped there, but they're sent to prison there, or they're sent there and put in a location that's not a prison until they can be sent back to their home countries, which it's illegal for the United States to send them where we know they'll be killed, but we send them to a third country that then chains them back to the country where they'll be killed. In one instance, we know of, they tear gassed people on the plane to get them off because they didn't want to get off because they knew they'd be killed when they did. Right. So this is an immoral, obscene, cruel government that, for all kinds of reasons, should not be in power in the United States. We will see more violence. ICE, ICE and CPB are improperly trained for the work they're doing. I would argue that they aren't just improperly trained; they are purposefully hired. They are sorting for a bigoted aggression. I saw it when they were here in Chicago. We saw it in Minneapolis. They just hate the people that they're going after. And this is not what this. It is a law enforcement agency. This is not a war against Americans. It's meant to be law enforcement. They are failing that job in every way. Every police force in the country has some form of oversight. These guys have none.
Yeah.
None. And they were supposed to wear body cameras. I know they weren't doing that in Houston, right? So everything about this is criminal, should be prosecuted. And I don't believe they can be reformed. I think we will have to reinvent our Border Patrol from scratch after this horrific period in our history comes to an end. And it is a horrific period akin to others we've had, I mean, they hate the idea that immigrants have come to this country and are successful. Hate it. So they want to stop that. And it's it's Latino, it's not Black, but it's like what they did in Tulsa, when they just said, you can't be successful. We're not going to allow it to happen. It's hideous. Tulsa 100 years ago. That's what I mean. It's absolutely hideous. And offenses that a normal Congress would not tolerate.
Right.
But we don't have a normal Congress. We have Trump's toadies in charge. And so they're complicit too.
Yeah.
By the way, I think he would like us to, I don't think he minds that Americans are protesting. I think he wants to incite protests throughout this long, hot summer so that when November comes, he can have more reason to put more troops on the street. We already know coming after our elections, in their mind, they can use one to get at the other.
Yes. So we have had, I believe, 39 shootings by immigration agents since Trump came back into power, resulting in 9 deaths. I mean, that is a staggering rate to contemplate.
And who's been held accountable? Not yet, anyone.
Right. And they have obstructed justice in Minneapolis over the 2 most well-known killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. And certainly in all the other instances as well. They consider themselves to be above the law. And this is a message that comes directly from the White House. And
who's obstructed justice?
ICE, CBP, the Department of Justice itself has obstructed state investigations.
The Department of Justice, right. And I note that this week, they let some of that evidence go quietly to Minnesota, and I assume that's just to get through the Todd Blanche hearings. It won't help, but that's what I think is happening. It's the Department of Justice that is obstructing justice.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you raised a point that you're expecting a ramp up in the summer, and that Trump is hoping that there are protests that he can use as an excuse to send troops to our polling places. And I think we need to consider the long history where there have been, in the summer, long hot summers, there have been historic race riots, and there have been protests, and sometimes things do get out of hand. And I think that is the exact model that Trump is looking at, and Stephen Miller and the entire administration that they're hoping to. They tried last summer in LA, in Chicago. They happened to decide to go to Minneapolis in the dead of winter, where they clearly were not prepared, and there were all those videos of agents slipping on ice. But summer is a very popular time for them to ramp things up. We saw the reaction of the first Trump administration after George Floyd was killed by police officers. They were ramping up their military response to that as well. And so I do think that, everyone has the right to protest, but we do need to have our head on a swivel, because there's a clear agenda from this administration, and they're trying to use anything as pretext for what they do in November.
Well, we saw protests spontaneously in Maine this weekend.
Right.
And they were peaceful. They were angry, but they were peaceful. And I think we will have peaceful protests. By the way, after George Floyd, nearly all of those protests were peaceful. Nearly,
Yes.
not all, but nearly all.
70% of them were.
Yeah. So I think we will see peaceful protests. I'm sure there will be agents provocateurs, courtesy of Trump funding, trying to encourage bad behavior.
Not to mention, sending out ICE and federal agents, as they've done at various protests for No Kings before.
Yeah. But in Maine, I think Susan Collins does not recover from this, and we don't even know who's going to run against her. But
Right.
She voted for all that extra ICE funding.
Yes, she did.
She voted for it. So she can say right now, oh, I'm shocked. Oh, there must be hearings. Oh, there must be accountability. And we can say to her, Susan, bullshit. You voted against adding accountability. You voted to give them money without strings. It's your fault. You own this. Blood is on your hands.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about Todd Blanche and his confirmation hearing that's coming up this week. Indications are that Republicans who control the Senate are ready to give this guy a pass, despite the fact that he violates the Epstein Transparency Act each and every day, despite the fact that he proudly asserts that he is Trump's lawyer to his core, and that is going to be how he runs the Department of Justice. Edwin, do you think that there is any stopping his nomination from going through?
I do. The political cost of putting this man in the head of Department of Justice will be catastrophic for everyone who votes for him. No one can avoid these facts. One, he is in charge of the retribution. He is in charge of the retribution. It was put in his hands. And according to Reuters, 470 people have been targeted by this administration, 269 of them federal employees. In my community, we had the Broadview Six, who were, indicted fraudulently by Blanche's government, by Blanche's DOJ, under his orders. Comey, Bragg, Letitia James, the weaponization, the destruction of the rule of law. These people do not know justice. Justice is an idea. It doesn't mean anything to them. What they understand is indictments, subpoenas, convictions, jail time. These are tools they can use for their tyranny, and they want to use them for their tyranny. He is responsible for that. That's one. Two, as you point out, he's the guy who led the meeting in the Situation Room, for God's sakes, a room where they might be considering what they should do in Iran, but apparently they don't bother to think on that score. But they did think carefully, how can we hide the Epstein files? How can we protect Donald Trump? How can I, Todd Blanche, go and quietly speak with Giselle Maxwell and arrange for her not to tell the truth the whole time? Oh, wait a minute. There's a lovely place we can put her where we can give her a dog, even though she's a convicted sex offender, sex trafficker, right? He's guilty of hiding the Epstein files, and everyone knows it. And all of America, Republicans and Democrats, and all the voters in those Republican districts have said this is a big priority of theirs. They don't like the cover-up. I'm sorry, he is the author of the cover-up. So that's two. And three, of course, is this, courtesy of a great judge in Florida, is his participation in his name on the paper to do the fraudulent deal with Trump to create the $2 billion slush fund as a payoff to forever immunize Trump from his tax crimes, his whole family, his crooked family. And Todd Blanche is the author of that. And the judge sanctioned him and sent her findings to the it's actually this New York Supreme Court that looks at this to engage in disbarment hearings for this man. So he's not fit to be a lawyer anywhere, and he's certainly not fit to run the Justice Department. And everyone knows it. And these Republicans are going to hear this in hearings. Democrats are ready for these hearings, and the cost to anyone who votes for him is going to be very high. In fact, Susan, they may not have hearings.
Well, in an interesting quirk of history, with Lindsey Graham passing away this weekend, they are a vote shy on this panel to confirm Todd Blanche and until his replacement is in office, which of course is one of the many reasons why Trump has, been pushing for Lindsey Graham's sister to be immediately appointed for this. And also he desperately wants his SAVE Act, which he has talked about in many of his very touching eulogies to Lindsey Graham. But that's an interesting wrinkle to the process. I also would want to note that 1,200 former Department of Justice officials have come out and they have put out a statement opposing Blanche's nomination, which is very unusual, especially with that department. And Todd Blanche was asked about that, and he had a very blasé take on it. I think we have that.
There's 1,200 former DOJ employees, I think, out of what, 40,000? So I don't know. I'm not a math guy, but that's not a very high percentage. I think there's people on there that were work with Jack Smith and the special counsel. The fact that there are a group of individuals out there that do not want me to be Attorney General is okay with me. I'm going to still work hard and still work with the Senate, Republicans or Democrats that have any questions for me about the validity or whether I should be confirmed.
Okay, so look, yes, 1,200 is not a giant percent of 40,000, but it's 1,200 more than have ever organized to say no to, right? The idea that former DOJ employees who do not comment on this felt it was important to comment on, that former judges all over the country are talking about this. And the indictment that I went through, these three areas that the man is complicit, is leading. I think his mindset is the boss will protect him. Mm-hmm. The boss has the votes. It doesn't matter. I don't care if people don't like me. The boss likes me. He'll take care of the Senate for me. I'll be fine. We will continue our carnage on the rule of law because the boss is okay with that. And you know what? It doesn't matter. I mean, what these people in Washington are too insulated from the country to understand is the country is turned on the boss. Donald Trump is standing there with all the trappings of the office and none of the trust. None of it.
The Senate is in play this fall. Taking a vote on Todd Blanche is not a popular thing for vulnerable Republicans to do. And I understand that this will not be a top tier issue in November, probably for most people, because we have the Iran war and gas prices and inflation and massive corruption and ISIS violence. And that's just
Epstein is still important to people.
Right. But nonetheless, the Epstein files, that is an issue that has interest across party lines. Yep. Everyone knows that Todd Blanche is the reason why these documents have been withheld. He's been extremely rude about survivors and just dismissive of the need to follow the rule of law, which the rest of us have to do. And so this is just yet another indication of how little respect Trump has for voters. This is not a popular thing to do. This is not someone who should be anywhere near the halls of power. And yet he doesn't care. He wants his guy, his personal attorney, to be the attorney general. He doesn't care if this costs Senate seats. And he certainly doesn't care that the American public doesn't want it.
This is the man who tried to make Matt Gaetz the first
attorney
general. Right. I mean, that more evidence you need. It's all in character. You and I talk about this stuff like it's news. There is no news here. We now know as America who this bastard is in the White House. Everyone in America has seen his character. We know he's in it only for himself. This week on the Strait of Hormuz, he said, you know what? I'm going to collect the money as tolls. Sure he is. It's going to go back into that Qatari bank account where he put it Venezuela's oil money. And who knows? We have never had an accounting of it. We don't know what's being scraped off the top of that. Right. The man is corrupt to the core, and he's corrupting of all of the institutions that make America strong, that protect our democracy, that protect ordinary Americans, and that allow us to say, we don't have to pay attention to the government. We can get on with our lives. We can go get a job, earn money. But no, this guy has been a terrible steward of our economy, terrible steward of our democracy. He's wrecked America's place in the world with his incompetence. And he has killed countless people all over the world in his illegal illegal wars, the murders in the Pacific and the Caribbean, which are murders, and people who know military law say so. And now he has said it is he had Marco Rubio say this week, it's the policy of our government to systematically destroy the International Criminal Court. I'll bet they don't want that to exist, right? Because they are guilty of crimes all over the world.
Yes, I will say though, before The Hague has their crack at Trump and Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and so many people in the administration, there needs to be a Nuremberg process here in the U.S. and a full accountability for all of the crimes that they've committed against the American people.
Completely. Absolutely, completely. And you know my thought. We not only have to be fully accountable, but we have to. We're going to have to get them out of the government, one of the places. We're really going to. It's a terrible cleanup job that we're going to have yet again after this. A bigger cleanup job than after the financial crisis. A bigger cleanup job. I mean, every time the Democrats come in, they're cleaning up a Republican mess. Right. I mean, Biden had to clean up after COVID, after the massive mishandling of COVID. Barack had to come in and clean up after the financial crisis that was on Bush's watch. And now, again, whoever's going to be the next president is going to have a massive cleanup to do because our federal government has been pillaged.
Yes.
I mean, people in my family have got this stomach bug that's running around the country rampant, and it's ugly. And it's running around rampant because we don't have a public health infrastructure anymore. Robert Kennedy is too busy looking for bear heads somewhere to cut off or whatever it was he did than to worry about public health. Right. So ICE, unaccountable, running around. They're a paramilitary force at the president's beck and call, meant to intimidate, meant to rid the country of hardworking immigrants, right? Because they hate them. We have a Justice Department that is corrupt and protecting ICE and feathering down and making illegal deals with Donald Trump illegal. The judge just said so, and the judges doing it should be disbarred. She said, we have a very close Senate now because Mitch McConnell won't be back there, and Lindsey Graham has departed. America, we are this close to being able to push them out.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, let's also talk about the fact that the House is not even functional. It's allegedly under Republican control, but Mike Johnson doesn't even have control of his own caucus because you have Anna Paulina Luna and a bunch of MAGA lunatics that won't let any business go on the House floor until they pass the Save America Act for Trump to disenfranchise millions of people to give Republicans a chance to win this November. And so you don't even have the House doing anything. And I know we've had this discussion, Edwin, that we don't really want them doing anything. But the fact is these people earn almost $200,000 a year with great benefits, and they're not even doing their jobs. And Mike Johnson can't even run a House where he has the majority in it.
Well, that 200,000 it doesn't include all their staff, doesn't include, it's millions and millions of dollars a year Congress costs $50 millions a year, more than that, hundreds of millions we spend on Congress, and we need a functioning Congress with strong committees that do their work, but these guys don't have that. They're not doing any of it. They're not going to get the SAVE Act. They're not going to get it. They aren't. They have budgets they have to pass. I mean, my God, the things they're not doing. And over his objection, the House and the Senate passed a war powers resolution, and Donald Trump is saying, "Oh, that was the old war. Now I have a new war. So let's restart the clock." Right? But Judd Legum had a piece this morning where he just laid out how many times Donald Trump has said the Straits of Hormuz are open, right? Oh, they're open. Oh, they're open. And he has the dates every time he said it. Now he's opening them again. Now they're open, but they're not open, but we're collecting tolls. But his administration says the tolls are illegal.
Right.
I mean, and you know what? Nobody really believes he's going to collect these tolls because the man's credibility is zero. That's part of the thing now. The president of the United States goes out into the world and says, we're going to take Greenland. And Europe the first time they were worried. Now they yawn and they say, you know what? Let Ukraine build Patriot missiles. And he says, I guess I have to. Okay. Right. His word means nothing. He's a paper tiger. He can bomb things. He can cause a lot of destruction, but he can't accomplish anything. So anything, nothing.
Well, no, he has been able to accomplish incredible feats of corruption.
Well, he can live to line his own pocket. Right?
Yes.
And he's the only president in history, maybe the only person in history. This is like no one has ever done this. That Israel and its Arab adversaries all disrespect and distrust.
Yes.
I mean, that's a hard thing to do.
Right.
Right. Everybody's agreed about one thing.
Right. But I mean, this is how Donald Trump has run his businesses. He is only in it for himself. And so he and Bibi are like this until he doesn't need Bibi anymore. And then Bibi can piss off, and so can MBS. And, all of our strong allies in the region are questioning us after this utter debacle in Iran. But
it's not over yet.
No, we're bombing again. And
moving again.
Back is rising once again. But I do want to talk a little more about this massive corruption, because we have talked we've talked in the past about the Qatari jet that has been transformed into Air Force One and, has been grounded due to unsurprising security concerns. The New York Times had reporting on this scandal. And now what is the White House doing? They showed up to their homes with subpoenas in an intimidation tactic, which is something that this administration does with great regularity toward reporters. But the timing of this, I do have to note that the White House Correspondents' Dinner is set to throw a party for Donald Trump in a couple of weeks, even with all of this going on.
I can't speak to the folly of the White House correspondents, but if they'd been doing their job the whole time, maybe we would not have Donald Trump as president a second time. I've never been a fan of access journalism, and the White House correspondents. There are a lot of good journalists there. Don't get me wrong, but the idea that they would throw a party for Donald Trump right now is repellent in every possible way. Kash Patel was coming to Chicago. Instead, he rushed to the White House to personally lead the investigation into these journalists, not from the FBI, but from the White House. That'll tell you something, right? And while he's at it, he's sending FBI agents to Lindsey Graham's house, probably to invent some story that, leftists somehow murdered him or something.
Or Iran.
Or Iran, right? Or Iran did it. Or they find that his DNA actually secretly spells I really wanted the SAVE Act,
Yes, the look into the entrails.
Yes, right. That's what I mean. That all of it is an enormous waste of taxpayer money. Mm-hmm. All of it is corrupt. All of it is folly, right? Because you can't whatever he says he finds in Lindsey Graham's house, Kash Patel isn't believable, not by anybody in the country anymore. I mean, we believe him when he says he can chug a beer fast. We saw that on,
with the men's hockey game.
Right. Everybody in the world saw that, but we don't believe him when he says, I have the evidence, because how many times has he jumped ahead of a case and told us, we know, we caught the killer of, no, we didn't.
He's a crackpot podcaster, and he's in charge of the FBI. That's where we're at right now.
And running his investigations out of the White House. Right. So and
this is all under Todd Blanche's DOJ.
All of it. Right. It's all a piece under Donald Trump's government. It's just corrupt to the, I was going to say to the core, but to the top. Corrupt to the top. Yep. Fish rots from the head down. And this one. Yeah.
It does.
So I mean, and that you weren't even asking about that. You were asking, you know, about the FBI, but not about him running off after Lindsey Graham. I apologize for that.
No, it has been a weekend, Edwin. It's been a year and a weekend. A lot for us to go through. But it is just very concerning to me as a journalist to see this targeting of people for doing their jobs, and just the explicit attempt to shut down reporting into Trump's corruption.
Yeah, it won't work. I mean, this is the thing about Americans. We don't stand down. So, you know what? The New York Times has come under withering criticism from Trump's adversaries. And yet we understand how vital they are in their reporting to the public.
And to their credit, they have been one of the media institutions who has been fighting Trump in court.
And they're going to stand up. They're going to protect them. And I believe these subpoenas will be quashed again.
Yeah.
Once again, overreach, and the judges will say so. And you know, maybe they wouldn't have been in the first week of his term, but now the judiciary doesn't trust the man either. Doesn't trust the people they send to court. I mean, I don't know, where is this? Is this a Jeanine Pirro thing? Is this happening in D.C.? This is where the reporters are. I mean, if she shows up, you know, she's the one who said there was a 350-foot gash in the reflecting pool, which there isn't. I mean, she's the one who couldn't indict the guy for throwing the ham sandwich. These are the corrupt clowns he has running his government. So I think, yeah, I mean, the idea that judges squash federal subpoenas, the idea that grand juries tell federal attorneys general, you know, no, not happening, not going to indict, or they do indict, and we later find out they were manipulated and lied to. Mm-hmm. You know, this is how corrupt this is. This is how appalling, and again, Americans, you know, we don't pay attention to politics. You know this. I mean, it's what we call the low information. People who don't join us every week. You know, like, we have a nice audience, but it's not most of America. You know, most of America really doesn't pay attention to this stuff, and yet it's seeping in. Yeah. Seeping in. Americans are figuring out, hey, wait a minute. He promised me we wouldn't be at war. We're at war. He promised me prices would go down. They went up. He said he was going after the worst of the worst. He's going after everybody. He's put his armed troops in my city and told me I can't protest. He's taking journalists and sending FBI agents to their house. And you know, this week, Susan, he's gonna demand to be on prime time. And by the way, the White House Correspondents' Dinner is a bad idea. Putting the man on a primetime speech is an equally terrible idea.
Right, so he can just lie to the public from that.
Right. He hasn't earned it. He has not. I'd rather watch reruns of you pick your favorite show than have him waste America's time.
Right. And there's been some speculation that he is going to put out some cockamamie story about the Georgia 2020 election being stolen. And so John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock are not legally senators. John Ossoff is on the ballot this year. He has preemptively come out about this, but the truth is we never know what's going to come out of Donald Trump's mouth. We don't know why he is doing this address. We just know that we are going to get lied to over and over again, whatever the topic is.
Well, look, if he uses it to lay the groundwork to steal the next election by claiming the last was his phone, if he uses it to say to the United States Senate, you have to expel 2 senators who were duly elected from Georgia because I'm telling you they weren't duly elected, I do not believe the Senate will do that. I do not believe the Republicans in the Senate will do that. I mean, again, they have surprised me on the downside.
If those senators weren't elected in 2020, then does that invalidate all the Republicans on the ballot in Georgia who won?
This is not a logic argument.
I understand it's not, but you know, the idea that certain elections were stolen but others weren't. I mean, there were
it's all crap, all of it. But is he going to demand that they be stripped of their rights to vote in the United States Senate? Is he going to demand that they be expelled from the Senate as imposters so that he has the majority he needs for the SAVE Act? Right? This is, I mean, you cannot, there is no game of speculation about the terrible things he will do that has been proven wrong. He's beaten every downside, warning. But I don't think the Senate's going to do it. I don't think the Senate's going to expel 2 of its own members for this. That would destroy that chamber permanently, and I just don't think they're going to do it. And should they be so stupid?
Right.
Americans will react. We don't believe in dictators.
Yeah,
And that would be
again, you were talking about the people who are not weird like us and think about politics all the time. Just, your average person, a president of the United States calling for 2 senators who were elected 6 years ago to be thrown out from the chamber. I mean, that's crazy stuff. I cannot see like normal voters thinking, oh, that's cool. Okay, let's do that.
By the way, he was president when that election happened.
He was.
He couldn't keep us have a safe election. I mean, because we've had safe elections when Democrats were president.
Right. But the rule that Republicans have adopted is because Biden was elected in the 2020 election. Therefore, any bad thing that happened in 2020, the pandemic, mass death, anybody who was pissed off about wearing a mask, the election, that's all Biden's fault somehow, even though the man was never inaugurated into office until 2021. It's a rhetorical sleight of hand, but you see it a lot online with memes.
I had somebody, I was in North Carolina and I was talking to people, and somebody there, said Democrats are communists. Now, he didn't think that the last time I talked to him, but Trump's been saying that lately. He went on and on with everything Trump says, but then he also said, and Barack Obama was responsible for the financial crisis that ended my business in 2008. And I'm like, George Bush was president when that all happened, and Barack helped dig it out. So the lies that people believe are the reason why you and I do this every day, right? But I do, in part because thousands of people are now telling the truth, and tens of thousands are telling the truth, and now hundreds of thousands are telling the truth, and we're gathering all over the country and spreading the truth. It's harder for the lies. They're now challenged. And Democrats, to their credit, are running candidates all over the country in districts where, frankly, they won't all win, and districts where they won't win for years, but they're going there so that the Republican lies don't go unchallenged anymore. Right. So that the candidate can stand up and say, yeah, it's really not true. I know you heard the vice president say the immigrants were eating their neighbors' cats, but it's just not true. Yeah. And here's the evidence. I mean, you start to do that around the country, and it's a great inoculation against the utter and complete contempt for Americans that allows you to lie to them with a straight face every day, like J.D. Vance does, like Donald Trump does, like Marco Rubio. I guess he didn't used to, but now he does. It's a strange thing that happens when you get too close to that man, Trump.
Yes. Well, thank you as always for joining us, Edwin. We'll look forward to seeing your show on Friday. It's The Democracy Stupid right here in Lincoln Square. And thanks to all of you for joining us as well.
Hey, you could help by subscribing. Lincoln Square is doing some really good stuff. And it isn't just the conversation Susan and I are having. So check it out more.
And you should also, for sure, subscribe to Edwin's Substack, which he has made very easy and called It's the Democracy Stupid.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you. Bye.